This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Sai. Thank you, everyone, for coming this morning. Welcome to the Kollel Agra de Pirka here in Kew Garden Hills, New York, on this glorious Martin Luther King Jr. Olav HaShalom Day in the United States of America. Baruch Hashem, we have a day off, you know. So here we go. Parshas Boy. So let's begin with something very interesting. We know we have Chamisha Chumshei Torah, 5 books in the Chumash. We call them Bereshis, Shemos, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim. And they sound like very nice names, good names. Just tell them we don't work on legal holidays, you know? Tell who? Yeah. What? Yeah. Send them mail. So we have the 5 Chumashim, Bereshis, Shemos, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim. So interesting, we call the second book Shemos. That's a pretty good name because the Sefer begins, V'ela Shemos B'nei Yisrael. Fine. The Ramban himself has a different name for Shemos. The Ramban calls the book of Shemos at the end of Sefer Bereshis. He calls Shemos Sefer HaGeula, which I think is also quite an original name, a very good name. You know, after all, a name is supposed to capture the essence of that particular thing. Okay. However, what's of note is the comments of the Bahag, the Baal Halachos Gedolos. The Bahag has the following name for the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. So you ready? Sefer Bereshis is Bereshis. Sefer Vayikra, I'm skipping Shemos, is Sefer Kohanim. Sefer Bamidbar is Chumash HaPekudim, the book of counting, right? Numbers, like they on those old blue Chumashim, right? And Mishnah Torah. Mishnah Torah is a reference to Sefer Devarim. Okay, Rabbi Say, drum roll, please. What does the Bahag call Sefer Shemos? The Bahag refers to Sefer Shemos as Chumash Sheni, book 2. Wow, how original. How did he ever come up with that name, you know? He must have thought really long and hard before he came up with the name Book 2. What in the world, why did the Bahag run out of ideas when he came to Sefer Shemos? Either be consistent, either call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or call them Bereshis, Shemos, Vayikra. But why is it all the other books have names and Parsha Sefer Shemos is called Book 2? Over the years, we've given a number of different explanations for why the Bahag refers to it as Book 2. The truth is, this is not the Bahag's invention, but it comes from the Gemara. Look at number 2. The Gemara Masechta Soita on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Beis says, Loi kederach shechalukin b'chumash hapekudim chalukin ba'avnei ephod. Not the way they divide Sefer Bamidbar do they divide the stones of the ephod. Ela kederach shechalukin b'chumash sheni. But rather the way they divide the second book. The way they divide the second book. What does that mean, the way they divide the second book? That's referring to Chumash Shemos. But here, it's not only the Bahag's invention, but clearly this is the nomenclature of the Gemara. The Gemara refers to Shemos as Book 2. So to quote the Netziv in his Hakdama to Sefer Shemos, he says, V'shuta derabbeinu nitein lelamdenu bina. The expressions, the words of our rabbis are worthy of learning, understanding from. Why do the rabbis refer to the book of Shemos as Book 2? Okay, Marv Rabbi Sai, let us note the following. Firstly, let's talk about the Makkos. You know, the Chavos HaVavos exhorts us that never to rely on our understanding of something from the first time we learned it. Because if you always rely on your understanding from the first time you learned something, you maintain a very immature understanding of it. But unfortunately, we sort of keep on understanding things, and we never develop beyond our initial understanding. So we have sometimes a childish understanding of things we learned when we were young. And certainly that goes for the Makkos. If you think about it objectively, like what in the world is going on in Mitzrayim? It's like a big carnival there. It's a big circus. All of a sudden, all the water turns to blood, and there are frogs croaking everywhere. There are frogs in people's wallets, in their iced teas, in their coming out of their throats, everywhere, out of their cell phones, all the things that should not be out. There are frogs everywhere, and then there's lice, and there are wild animals, and the Medrash says there was makas arav, right? So makas arav. So you have wild animals everywhere. Not a problem. So just stay indoors, stay inside for a week. So the Medrash says, no, we're not going to stay indoors. It's not going to help. The Medrash tells us that the animals got inside the people's homes. How the animals get inside the homes? So the octopus would come, and the octopus has these suction cups on its hand. They would suck out the lock, and then the polar bear came, bashed down the door, and it was a field day. So you think about the Makkos, it seems like kids play. It seems like child's play. What is the Rebbeinu Shalom doing with the Makkos? He wants to kill the Egyptians. Kill the Egyptians. What's he making a whole circus? He's making a whole carnival. It's a zoo all of a sudden. It's a combination of Disneyland, the Bronx Zoo. It's very amusing for children, but as an adult, and you learn this, it seems somewhat ridiculous. Like, what are the Makkos? We have to sort of develop our understanding. What's Rebbeinu Shalom trying to accomplish with the Makkos? And you look at the Makkos, and they're being bombarded relentlessly. Dam, Tzvardeya, Kinim, Arav, 3 weeks, and then there's a 1 week hiatus. But the Netziv writes that what does the word Zroya Natuya mean? Zroya Natuya means that Rebbeinu Shalom's arm was outstretched even during the 1 week hiatus. During that 1 week, there were key strategic assassinations where the Rebbeinu Shalom just knocked off top Egyptian officials during that week. So it was relentless. There was no break. They were being bombarded. And yet, the Torah seems to record it that way until we get to Makas B'chayros. So Dam, Tzvardeya, we know in Parshas Meir there are 7 Makkos. In Parshas Boy there are 3 Makkos. Dam, Tzvardeya, Kinim, Arav, Dever, Shchin. And in between the Makkos there are no commercials, there are no breaks, there are no limudim, there's nothing. It's just one after another until Makas B'chayros. Before Makas B'chayros, all of a sudden there's like a whole show going on. What's the show? Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe ve'el Aaron. HaChodesh hazeh lachem, Rosh Chadashim, Rishon hu lachem, l'chodshei hashana. As the introduction to Makas B'chayros, the Rebbeinu Shalom seems to teach a random mitzvah. You know what the random mitzvah is? This month's for you. No, the Chodesh Nisan is the first month of the year. All of a sudden, now think about what's happening. Until this mitzvah, the way time moved was that the year began in Tishrei, and the first month of the year was when? Tishrei. Comes the intro to Makas B'chayros, and the Rebbeinu Shalom says, we're changing the movement of time. Until now, the year began in Tishrei, now the year begins in Nisan. So they're scratching their heads, I don't understand. The Rosh Hashanah is Tishrei, but the first month is Nisan. What's going on? Hashem said, different things move different ways. The year begins in Tishrei. The first month is Nisan. This is the first month of the year. Why in the world, as an introduction to Makas B'chayros, is Rebbeinu Shalom changing time? I understand it happened at that time, but why is it recorded that way? After all, it's recording the Seder of the Makkos. It's recording the order of the plagues. Why at that juncture? Why is it critical for the Rebbeinu Shalom to record in the Torah at that particular time? HaChodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chadashim. Also, you have then the mitzvah of Karban Pesach. It's also interjected as an introduction to Makas B'chayros. Why is that? Marv Rabbi, let us take a look at a medrash. It's a Psikta Zutrasi. The Psikta says as follows. Look at number 4. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe hashkem b'boker. Says a medrash. Al kol mako u'mako shehevi HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Mitzrayim. On every makkah that God brought, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought in the Mitzrayim, lo haya Moshe Rabbeinu hoylech ela al pi hagvura. Moshe Rabbeinu only followed orders. Why? What does this mean? Yavoyu asara ma'amoros shel eser makos. Let the 10 ma'amoros of the 10 makos come. V'yifra mi paroyim in Mitzrayim, and pay back Paro in the Mitzrayim. Sharatzu l'shabed am Yisrael, who wanted to subjugate the Jewish people. Sheba'avuram nivra ha'olam asar ma'amoros. that on their account, the world was created with 10 statements. So now, this Medrash opens up the world to us, because the Medrash is drawing a comparison and a connection between the 10 statements with which God created the world and the 10 Makkos. And somehow, because Paro subjugated the Jews, for which the world was created with 10 statements, they need to be punished with 10 Makkos. What's the connection between the 10 Makkos and the Asara Ma'amoros Shenivra Ha'olam? So let's just take a brief interval, we'll make a brief tangent. Because if you look through Sefer, the first parak of Parshas Bereshis, we know the Mishnah tells us in Perkei Avos, Ba'asara Ma'amoros Nivra Ha'olam, the world was created with 10 statements. It's the first Mishnah in Parak Hey. Ba'asara Ma'amoros Nivra Ha'olam. Yeah, everybody familiar with that? Says the Mishnah, why did Hashem have to create the world with 10 statements? He could have created the world with one statement, to reward tzaddikim more who are upholding the world that was created with 10 statements, and to punish the Risham that they're destroying a world that was created with 10 statements. So let's go through the Brias Ha'olam and see in fact how many Amiros there are. So we know how many days of creation are there? 6 days of creation. Now everybody, even if you're not never took advanced calculus, will know that 6 is not 10, right? It's a different number than 10. 6. So how many are we missing? We're missing 4. So what are the 10 Ma'amar Shenivra Ha'olam? So we go to day 1. The only Ma'amar on day 1 is Vayomer Lekim. Vayomer Lekim Yehiar. That's day 1. Day 2, Vayomer Lekim Yehirakia, the firmament. Day 3, we know it says Kitov twice. What are the 2 Amir? On day 3, there are 2 Amiros. What are they? Vayomer Lekim Yikavu Hamayim. Vayomer Lekim Tadshe Haaretz. So there are 2 Amiros on day 3. Day 4, Vayomer Lekim Yehi Ma'oros. Day 5, Vayomer Lekim Yishutzu Hamayim Sheretz Nefesh Chaya V'Oif, the birds and the fish. Day 6, Yehi Ma'oros Yishutzu Hamayim. Day 5, right? Day 6. Again, let's start again. You confuse me. Vayomer Lekim Yehiar. That's day 1. Day 2 is Yehirakia. Day 3 is 2. Yikavu Hamayim and Toitziras Desha. Day 4 is Yehi Ma'oros. Day 5 is Yishutzu Hamayim Sheretz Nefesh Chaya. Day 6, Toitzi Haaretz. Toitziras Nefesh Chaya, the animals. And Vayomer Lekim Nase Adam. So you could see very clearly the 10 Ma'amoros Shenivra Ha'olam, right? By the way, everyone's up today? No. So we only have 8, right? We only have 8. So, one Maimar, which we could say, and this is the opinion of the Vilna Gaon and the Maral, is, I have a question for you. Which ingredient, if it was missing, nobody would come to the Shiur? Honestly, right? Emein kemach ein Torah. So the last Amira, the most important Amira is Vayomer Elokim, breakfast is served, right? That's the 10th Amira. The 10th Amira is Hine Nasati Lachem Eis Kalesav Hasada. That's the 10th Amira. But the question is, but it's only the 9th Amira. So the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah asks, look at number 6, Asar Ma'amar Shem Nivra Ha'olam, Hainenu. So the Gemara says, Vayomer Bereshis Tes Havu. There are only 9 Vayomers. No! Bereshis Nami Mamarhu. Bereshis itself is also a Maimer. Like it says, Bidvar Hashem Shamayim Nasu. The creation ex nihilo, the original act of Bereshis, the original creation of the world, the original matter was also an Amira. Shenemar Bidvar Hashem Shamayim Nasu. What's the $1 million question? So why doesn't it say Vayomer Elokim Yehi Shamayim? So the Malbim says beautifully that al pi diktuk, there's a very big difference between the word dibur and amira. Dibur is echad medaber l'sheni, one person speaking to somebody else. When somebody's talking and no one listening, that's not a dibur. Excuse me. Amira is echad l'sheni. Vayomer is echad l'sheni. Dibur is just speaking. Let's say when a rabbi gives a drasha, that's Dibur. It's not Amira. He's not necessarily talking to anybody listening. It's a Dibur. Is it an Amira? Is it one to somebody else? He hopes so, You know, they said there was once a young Rav, so he went to a more seasoned rabbi for advice. So the rabbi said, to be a Rav, you have to have a very good imagination. So what do you need imagination for? You need to imagine that people are listening, right? So the Rambam says the difference between Amira and Dibur is Amira is Echad L'Sheni, Echad Medar Eruvin to Shemain, and Dibur is Stamazai, just as a speech. Therefore, after Hashem created the original matter, so Hashem was talking to something. Hashem said to atoms, to building blocks, be this, be that. So once Hashem created the original matter, it could say Vayomer. But the original act of creation, which is creation Yesh Me'an ex nihilo, it can't say Vayomer, it's just as Bereshis Bar Elokim. Okay, be it as it may, there are 10 statements of creation. What does it have to do with the 10 Makos? So comes the Sefer Tzrar Hamar of Rabbi Avram Saba, one of the Gerushay Sfarad, and he is Megala, a tremendous idea. And this is really a breakthrough understanding of the Makos, and that is, we make Kiddush every Friday night, and we say, Zecher Liyitzias Mitzrayim. And we also say, Zecher Lamasei Bereshis. Now I know people are tired Friday night, but such a short-term memory, where first you say it's Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, and 10 seconds later you change your mind, you say it's Zecher to something else. I mean, that asleep people are not. It's not like they began to eat the challah yet. Why do we change our minds? First we say Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim. The answer is like this. Paroi was a koifer in Masa Bereshis. Paroi was a heretic. Paroi did not believe in Brias Ha'olam Yesh Me'ayim. He didn't believe Hashem was Borei the Shamayim. He didn't believe Hashem was Borei the Aretz. He didn't believe Hashem created the Ruach. He didn't believe Hashem created the Afar. Paroi said what? Li Ya'iri, right? V'ani Asasini. The river is mine, and I made myself. I'm God. So Hashem says to Paroi, really? You don't think I created the water? Oh, really? You don't think I'm the creator? I'm going to show you what happens when you don't think I created the water. We're going to put an end to the water. You don't think I created the animals? Tzfardeya. You don't think I created the earth? Look what happens when I show my mastery over the earth. You don't believe I created the animals? You don't believe I created light? Maybe we'll turn the lights out. You don't believe I created man? Makas b'chayros. The purpose of Yitzias Mitzrayim, and the purpose of the Makos in Mitzrayim, and the purpose of all of the various miracles that were taking place, this was not a carnival, this was not a circus, this was not, child's play. It was demonstrating and authenticating and confirming Ma'aseh Bereshis, showing that in fact Hashem created the world, Yesh Me'ayin. It is what we call creation take two. Let's try this again. You don't believe the first version because you say, I didn't see with my eyes. Let me demonstrate my mastery over all aspects of creation. When we make Kiddush Friday night, we're not contradicting ourselves. We're not saying, Zecher L'Ma'aseh Bereshis, Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, and Shnei Ksuvim Ma'abam Ke'ach. No, it's one idea. The idea is Zecher L'Ma'aseh Bereshis. But the event that transpired, that showed and demonstrated to the whole world that God, in fact, has mastery over all elements of creation, were the miracles of Yitzias Mitzrayim. That is the approach of the Tzrar Hamar. Comes the Maral, and the Maral takes it just one beautiful step further. And the Maral says, well, if God created the world ba'asara ma'amoros, then it's no coincidence that He brought 10 Makos. The 10 Makos were authenticating and confirming the asara ma'amoros shenivra ha'olam. And therefore, each Makkah was designated to prove and authenticate one particular Amira. And I want to share with you which Makkah corresponded to which Amira. So let's begin with Makas Adam. Maral has a tremendous approach. Says the Maral, we know that the Makas Dam corresponds to, we would have expected it to correspond to the first Amira, the Bereshis. No. It works backward, okay? So the first Makkah, Makas Dam, corresponds to Vayomer Elokim breakfast is served, right? The last Amira Shenivra Olam. Why? What does blood have to do with food? Says the Maral very simply. What are we sustained on? We eat food, we ingest it, we digest it, and then we break it down and we reconstitute the molecules to become part of our blood system. So ultimately what food is turned into our red blood cells, our white blood cells, and our being, our dam. Adam is aleph dam, is made out of dam. Says Rebbe Shem, you don't believe that I provide man with food? You don't believe that through food man is able to recreate his blood? I will show you my mastery over dam. Makas dam was a confirmation of Vayomer Lakim Hine Nasati Lachem Es Kol Esav. Let's move to Tzfardeya. Paroi denied the fact that Hashem created creepy crawling insects and creatures and reptiles. So Tzfardeya corresponds to Vayomer Elakim Yishutzu Hamayim Sheretz. That's Makkah Tzfardeya. So the second Makkah corresponds to the seventh Amira Shenivra Olam. Listen carefully. Makas Kinim. Makas Kinim. What happened during Makas Kinim? The Afar turned into Kinim. Why didn't Yaakov Avinu want to be buried in Mitzrayim? Because he didn't want his dirt to turn into Kinim. Paroi did not believe God said Yikavu Amayim El Makom Echa V'Seirah Hayabasha. Paroi did not believe that Hashem formed the dry land. Hashem said, let me demonstrate my mastery over the dry land. I'm going to turn it into Kinim. Arov is very obvious. The fourth Makkah. Paroi didn't believe that Hashem created the wild animals. Toitzi Haaretz Nefesh Chaya, which is the eighth Mamar of Brias Ha'olam. So says Rebbe Shem, let me make the animals grow wild. Dever, Makas Dever. Dever, the Maral says a very interesting idea. It sounds like more of an ancient type of philosophy, and that is, the Maral says, it's well accepted that everything that transpires in this world, in the natural world, is affected by particles of stardust floating around the galaxies. You know, to us it sounds like a very archaic idea. Who believes in stardust affecting what transpires in this world? But I'll give you even a practical example of this. What does Rashi say on the fourth day of Ma'aseh Bereishis? Yehi ma'oros berkiah hashamayim. Rashi says the word ma'oros is spelled me'era, a curse. Why? Because when there are eclipses, that causes sickness in children. Chas v'shalom. Well, what does one thing got to do with the other? There is a belief that even we have, that there is a correlation between the celestial bodies and the relative health down here in this world. So Dever, which was a pestilence, some type of death, corresponded to Yehi ma'oros. Shchin! Now listen to this one. The only makkah that the Chartumim were embarrassed to appear before Moshe and Aaron was Shchin. Why? It's like this. If let's say by the makkah of frogs, so let's say you have 4 frogs sticking out of one nostril and 7 frogs sticking out of the other nostril, and you have a disemboweled frog coming out of your left ear, right? It's not embarrassed, it's not a busha. What's the busha? You're still a nice looking guy, you're still a good looking guy. It happens to be you have frogs protruding from different orifices in your body. It doesn't affect your good looks. You still, still a strapping young man, you still look good. It happens to be you have frogs sticking out. You could always Photoshop out the frogs. There's nothing about the Adam itself that is affected. Shchin was the only makkah where the tzura of the Adam was defiled and made disgusting. So Shchin, so Paroi didn't believe Hashem said Nasa Adam. Hashem said, you don't believe in Nasa Adam? I'll show you how I know how to tamper with the Tzuras HaAdam. Fine. Barad, the Maral says, corresponds to Rakiah, because the Barad came down from the Rakiah. Arbe was the one makkah that affected only what? Toitzi ha'aretz desha esev mazriya zera. As we know, what does it say in the Teichacha? Zera rav toitzi hasadeh uma'at te'esoiv ki yachsilenu ha'arbe. Arbe destroys the herbage, the vegetation, the plants. Kol eitzcho priad mascho yiyarash hatzilot sal. So Arba, Paro, you don't believe I caused the vegetation to sprout and to flourish? We're going to have the Arba destroy everything. Let's talk about the ninth Makkah, Choshech. What do you think Choshech corresponds to? Yihiyar. Paro, you don't believe I turned the lights on? You don't believe that the illumination of the world is me turning on this switch? Oh, really? Then you're going to see what it looks like when we turn the switch off. And then finally, Makas B'chayrais, which is the 10th Makkah. Paro, you don't believe I create the beginnings? You don't believe in Bereshis? You don't believe I have control over the beginning? Watch out, Paro. Watch out, all the firstborn are Egypt, all the Rashis will drop dead. So according to the Maral, there's no circus going on in Mitzrayim. It's not a carnival, it's not Disneyland, it's not great adventures. What's taking place is confirmation of Brias HaOlam, where each Makkah is designated specifically to uphold and to confirm a specific Mamar Shanivra HaOlam. So it's pointed out in the Sefer Mizmar LeDavid. Now, what is the Mizmar LeDavid? Mizmar LeDavid are the Mamarim of Rav David Cohen. Rav David Cohen is Rosh Yeshiva of Chevron. So there are two groups of Svarim from the Machshav of David Cohen. Rav David Cohen has, Yemei Chanukah, Yemei Purim, Zman Simchaseinu. And then there's another series called Mizmar LeDavid. Mizmar LeDavid is written by a dear friend of mine, Rav Moshe Gruen. I think Rav David Cohen has some kind of phone shear that he calls into Lakewood. And these are the Mamarim that are recorded in the Mizmar LeDavid. And the Mizmar LeDavid says, so let's look carefully at the Maral system. The Maral system is that the Asara Mamarish Nivra Ha'ilam are upheld with the Eser Makos in what direction? Backward. So Dam corresponds to the Maimer of food. The first Makkah corresponds to the 10th Amira. And the 9th Makkah, Choshech, corresponds to the second Amira, Vayomer Elokim Hiyar, and the 10th Makkah, Makas B'chayros, corresponds to Bereshis. So it works backward. And he says, why does it work backward? Why are we going backward? So the way he explains it is, as God created the world, He revealed His mastery more and more and more. He created original matter, and then He developed it further, until the greatest manifestation of the Chachma and Chesed of Hashem is what? Food. The greatest Chesed of Hashem and the greatest Chachma of Hashem is food. That's why the ultimate kindness of Hashem is Noisein Lechem L'chol Basar Kili Olam Chasdai. Even after man. Slowly, the world did not become heretical immediately. First they shed the 10th revelation of God's glory, the 10th Amira Shenivra Olam, and then they shed the 9th, then they shed the 8th, and finally they shed the 1st. So slowly, God is reminding them of what was forgotten first. Oh, you forgot food? Dam. Oh, you forgot? So it's working backward. So I called up my friend, Rabbi Moshe Gruen, who wrote this sefer. I said, yeah, but if you look in the Maral doesn't say it goes backwards. The first Dam corresponds to food. And Choshech corresponds to Yihiyar. And Makas B'charis corresponds to Rashis, but the rest of them are sporadic. The rest of them are, haphazard. So he said, he'll ask Rav David Cohen. He asked Rav David Cohen. Rav David Cohen said, in his opinion, an order is established based on the bookends. In other words, if the first is Adam, corresponds to the last Amira, and the last, Makas B'charis, corresponds to the Bereshis, so that establishes the whole order, even if it doesn't follow the pattern throughout. Okay, be it as it may, the Maral has a very specific system. Rabbi Sai, based on the system, Galeinai v'abitin v'flois m'tarasecha, there are wonders in the diukim and the pasuk. Let's think carefully. What Makkah does Arbe correspond to? Vayomer Elokim Taitzi Haaretz, right? Vayomer Elokim Tatshe Haaretz Desha. So Arbe corresponds to the growth, the vegetation, and the herbage. I'm going to show you something. Oyem v'noira. Look by the Makkah of the Arbe. V'chisas ein haaretz. The Arbe is going to cover the light of the land. V'lo yuchal eretz. V'achalas yasar pleta, and it's going to consume whatever remained. Hanisharas lachem min habarat. V'achal eskol ha'etz. It's going to eat the trees. Doesn't say it's going to eat the fruits. The arba is going to eat the trees. And oyam v'noira, look at number 11. What did the arba do? Vayechasas ein kol ha'aretz. They covered the light of the land. V'atechshach ha'aretz. V'yoichalas kol esav ha'aretz. V'eis kol pri ha'etz. They ate the fruit of the tree. But that's not what Hashem said. Hashem said eat the tree. They didn't eat the tree. They ate the fruit. What's going on? Rebellious grasshoppers. Why are the grasshoppers not listening to the word of Hashem? It's creation gone haywire. Says Rav David Cohen, don't blame the grasshoppers. This is how the world was programmed. Because we know on the fourth day of creation, when God spoke to the trees, Vayomer Elokim, Tad Shea Aretz Desha, sprout vegetation, Esev, grass, Mazriya Zera, yielding seeds, Eitz, Pri, Oise Pri, produce trees of fruit that produce fruit, and we know why does it say eitz pri oisa pri? It should say eitz oisa pri. So Chazal say Hashem wanted that tamperia ve'etz oishavin, right? Eitz pri, that the eitz should taste like the tree. Did they listen? Ve'etz oisa pri, but not ve'etz pri oisa pri. What happened? The trees, the herbage, did not listen to Hashem. So if the grasshoppers are merely confirming and authenticating Brias HaOlam, you can't, it's Yuridas Adoris, you can't be better than the Av. If creation of the world, on take one, if the first time around the herbage didn't listen to Hashem, Hashem is merely replaying what happened the first time. So if the grasshopper is merely confirming Brias HaOlam, the same way the herbage didn't listen to Hashem, the grasshoppers parallel that disobedience perfectly. It's a tremendous, amazing diak by Rav David Cohen, Rosh Yeshiva of Hebron. In a footnote in the Sefer Mizmor LaDavid. In the footnote. That's the answer that he got. What? Is that the answer also on the... No, regarding the order, he just said it goes by the bookends. It's determined by the bookends. Here's another thing that he pointed out, also tremendous. Let's take a look, Rabbi Isai, in number 17. In number 17. Let's point out the following. We asked, why as an introduction to Makas B'chayros does Hashem introduce Makas B'chayros with HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem? What's he doing? He's recreating time. Why is Hashem recreating time? So let's understand for a moment. Makas B'chayros is Keneged which Amira? It's Keneged Bereshis Bar Elokim. Paro, you don't believe that I control the Rashis? You don't believe I said Bereshis Bar Elokim? I'm going to show you I created Rashis. How? I'm going to knock off your firstborn. But let's think for a moment. The creation of Bereshis Bar Elokim. What was that creation of Bereshis Bar Elokim? What do the words mean, Bereshis Bar Elokim? Rashi says, you can't say Bereshis Bar Elokim means in the beginning, God created the Shamayim v'Aretz, because He didn't create Shamayim v'Aretz first. Because Shamayim is made out of Mayim, that means He created Mayim before the Shamayim. So what does the word Bereshis in the beginning mean? So Rashi says it means Bereshis bar Elokim, in the beginning of the creation of heaven and earth, Vayomer Elokim Yihiyar. It's a davuk, Bereshis Brias Ha'olam. Comes the Vilna Gaon, and comes the Malbim, comes the Duvna Maggid, and they all say, no, that's not the simple meaning of the word Bereshis. Bereshis was a creation. You know what the creation of Bereshis was? I have a question for you. We say in Baruch She'amar, Baruch She'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch Hu. Baruch Oiseh Bereshis. That makes how much sense? 0. Blessed is the one who made in the beginning. Blessed is the one who made what in the beginning? You can't say Baruch Oiseh Bereshis. If Bereshis means in the beginning of, blessed is the one who made in the beginning of. Ein loy mashmaos, it has no meaning. It could say Bereshis, Baruch Oiseh Reishis, but what does it mean Baruch Oiseh Bereshis? It could say Baruch Oiseh Maaseh Bereshis. Says, it's quoted in number 19 in the Siddur of the Vilna Gaon, in the Adaras Eliyahu on Chumash, on Parak Aleph, Pasuk Aleph of Bereshis. The Malbim, the Dubna Maggid. Do you know what the word Bereshis means? Bereshis bara Elokim. God created Bereshis. You know what the first creation was? We know that everything that happens, whenever you want to make something, there always has to be a framework to put it in. Everything has to exist within a framework. You can't make something in a vacuum. We know that Hashem is Haya, Haiva, V'yeh. God was, is, and will be. He exists outside of time because time is a creation and God is not limited by what He created. Bereshis bara Elokim. Beginnings God created. That's a way of saying God created time. Time was the very first creation. Because without time, there's nothing to put creation into. The framework in which the world exists is time. In other words, do we really exist? Not really. We're just a figment of Hashem's imagination. You know those comics where you have somebody and there's like a bubble? So what's in that bubble? Does it exist? It exists in the bubble. So the world is Hashem's bubble. It's Hashem's idea. What is the framework in which the world exists? Time. We all exist in time. We're Tachas Hazman. Bereshis bara Elokim. God created time. Oh, once there's time, we can make heaven, we can make earth, we can make light, we can make darkness, we can make plants, we can make animals. But it's all within the box and the framework of time. So Rabbi said, what is the very first creation? Time. Now, if God is recreating the world with the Makos, and the way He recreates Bereshis is which Makkah? Makas b'chayros. So how is Hashem going to recreate time with Makas b'chayros? Vayomer Hashem al Moshe v'yal Aaron hachodesh hazeh lachem rosh chadashim. Why is Hashem interrupting the recreation of the world with a random mitzvah? It's not a random mitzvah. It's part of the recreation of the world. The same way the first time around Hashem created the world, b'tishrei nivra olam. Now God's recreating time slightly differently. That now time moves in a different oifen. Now time moves, this month's for you. HaChodesh hazeh lachem. This is a recreation of time. So Hashem gave me a beautiful idea. Some people really like it and others, So it's up to you. You don't have to buy it. I think it's very, very nice. Rashi opens up the Torah. Rashi says, what's going on over here? Why does the Torah begin Bereshis? The Torah should begin what? HaChodesh hazeh lachem rosh chadashim. So I say, Rebbeinu Shalom heard that kasha minas shamayim. Rashi, taka, good kasha. The next time I create the world, I'll give it to you. I'll start the world. HaChodesh hazeh lachem. And taka, that's what he did. Because the second time Hashem created the world, which is, how did Hashem create the world? With Makas b'chayros. In other words, the creation of today, the world we live in today. When did Hashem create the Bereshis? Makas b'chayros. What's the intro? HaChodesh hazeh lachem. So what Rashi wanted the Torah to start with, Hashem said, Taka, such a good kasha. If I ever do it again, I'll give it to you. No, but in all seriousness, that's what's happening. Or we could say it slightly differently. We could say like this. Why was Rashi so confident that the Torah should begin this way? Who told Rashi the Torah should begin this way? I think Hashem knows how to write the start. Rashi said, no, the Torah should start like this. Rashi, v'mchilas k'vayid charama, I think Rebbeinu Shalom knows what he's doing. Rashi said, no, this is not my idea. You showed me that when you recreated the world, that's how you started the Torah. So, you should have started that way the first time. If it's in Madura Beis, why didn't you start Madura Aleph that way? Okay, now let me tell you one. Now, you could say another thing. You could say, Bereshis, what does Bereshis mean according to Rashi in the Drasha? Bereshis, Bishvil Yisrael shenikra Reshis, Bishvil HaTorah shenikra Reshis. So therefore, if the Bereshis was because of the Torah and because of the mitzvahs, so Hashem inserted the mitzvah of HaChodesh hazeh lachem as a way of indicating, this whole recreation it's all for lachem, it's all for Klal Yisrael, it's all for Torah, it's all for mitzvahs. And can we add one more detail? If you're familiar, the Alshach says another pshat in the word Bereshis. Bereshis is because of the mitzvah of Bikurim, which is Hakaras HaToiv, Nivra Ha'olam. Well, then, in the recreation of the world, Hashem injects carbon Pesach, which, according to many, is a carbon Taida. Also, that's what the world was created for. But be it as it may, the Asara Ma'amaros Shenivra Olam are being confirmed, authenticated, and proven, and demonstrated, accurate, and verified through the recreation of the world of the Eser Makos. Now, let me just share with you. Yeah, you want to make a point?
Why is the Paro Zochet? Who's Paro? That all this, everything that Hashem is going to be Megala and the recreation of the world, he's got to prove to this one guy.
Who is this guy?
Yeah, he's the world leader. Why is he Zocha that the second creation comes about according to him?
The Jews are not. There's something that the Jews didn't do anything killed.
Yeah. Okay, all good questions. All good points. Let me share with you one more system. Let me share with you another system. The Maral system is backward. Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chaver, in number 25, his system is forward. Dam, which is for man, is Keneged Bereshis. Tzifardea is Keneged Vayim Elokim Hiyar. He goes forward. If you go forward, I want to point out an amazing thing. That means Makas B'chayros is Keneged what? By Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chaver, Makas B'chayros is Keneged Nasa Adam. Nasa Adam. Even though in the Maral, the 10th Maimer was food, but in Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac, now I just want to share with you, there are various ways of calculating the Asar Ma'amar Shenivra Olam. The one that we mentioned was the Maral and the Gra is again, Bereshis is 1, Vayarm Elokim Yihar is 2, that's 2 on day 1. Day 2 is Yehi Harakiah. Day 3 is Yikavu and Toitzi Aretz Deshe. Day 4 is Yehi Ma'oros. Day 5 is Yishutzu Hamayim. And day 6 is 3. Toitzi Aretz Nefesh Chaya, the animals, Nasa Adam, the men, and the food. That's the opinion of the Maral. If you look at number 30 in the Bereshis Rabbah, you see basically what we need to do is, there's 6 days. On day 1 there are 2, if you count Bereshis, and on day 3 there are 2, right? Yikavu Amayim and Toitziar. So we need to find another 2. So the Gra and the Maral say the other 2 are Bereshis and food, right? And food. The Medrash says the additional 2. The Medrash brings an opinion that it's Bereshis and Veruach Elokim Rachefes Al Pnei Hamayim is also an Amira according to the Medrash. The Medrash brings another opinion, a very nice opinion, is the Bereshis and Lo Toiv Hayosa Adam Levadai. Because we know a person before they're married, they're not Shalem. So with the marriage, they become Shalem. That's also a creation. The Pirkei de Rebbe Lezer, number 31, says Bereshis is not a Maimer. Argues on the Gemara. Bereshis is not a Maimer. What are the 10 Mamaros? Food and marriage. Right? Everybody knows the 2 go together, right? Food and marriage. What are you going to do with food without marriage? You can do marriage. So according to Birgit Rebbe Lezer, Bereshis is not even a Maimer. There is a Zoyar that says Bereshis is not a Maimer. Food and marriage, like the Pirkei Rebbe Lezer. There's a Tikunei Zayar, also no Bereshis, no marriage, food and Pruruvu. So there are various ways of calculating the Asar Ma'amoros Shenivra Olam. Let me point out one amazing ha'ara in the world of Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chaver, that the way the systems work is forwards. Dam is Keneged Bereshis. Tzvardei is Keneged Hi'ar. And finally, Makas B'charis is Keneged Nasa Adam. This is beautiful. You know, there's a big controversy by Makas B'charis. What's the controversy? Who brought Makas B'charis? If you look in the Haggadah, Ani Hashem, Ani v'loy Malach, Ani v'loy Saraf, Ani v'loy Shliach, Ani hu v'loy Acher. I mean, we couldn't be more clear that nobody else was involved, right? Ani v'loy him, Ani v'loy that, Saraf, Malach, Shliach. Well, what is a Saraf? I never heard of Saraf. All of a sudden, we have to point out, by the way, it was Hashem, even though not a Malach, it was also not a Saraf. Only Hashem. And the one Makkah that we make such a big deal that it was only Hashem, their indications are that it wasn't only Hashem. First of all, it says Vashem Hika. And the Medrash says, Kol Makim Shenemar Vashem, Hashem Ubezdinoi. And it says, V'yitin hamashchis, right? Everybody knows the famous question. If it was Hashem, well, what do you mean Hashem says, and I won't let the mashchis? Well, I thought it's you and not a sarf and not a shliach and not a malach. So I think there's a very beautiful answer to this question. There's a beautiful answer to the question. And that is, what's Hashem confirming with Makas B'chayros? The creation of man. Who created man? So the pasuk says, "Vayomer Elokim Nasa Adam." So Rashi says, "Vas Geiton, what's going on over here? What, are there more than one Rashus? Is there more than one God? Who's the Nasa?" So Rashi says, this is the Anivus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because man was created in the image of the Malachim, they're going to get jealous. So Hashem sort of asked their advice to appease them. From here we learn Anivus and Derech Eretz, that a superior should always ask the advice of an inferior. Don't worry, says Rashi. The refutation to the heretic is immediate. Vayivra Elokim es ha'adam. So I have a question. Did God need help creating man? No. Why does it say Nasa? It's a gesture of humility. So we could say very simply, what's Makas B'chayros doing? All Makas B'chayros is doing is confirming the creation of man. The same way when Hashem created man, He made a gesture of humility, and He made it as if He's consulting with the Malachim. And He said, "Oh, what do you think?" Even though He didn't care what they thought, it's just a sign of humility. So too, when Hashem recreated man, it's Vashem Hika, God and His Bezdin. Doesn't really mean Him and His Bezdin. Of course, it's Ani v'lei Achar, Ani v'lei Malach, Ani v'lei Sarv, Ani. It was just the same gesture of humility. I'm not going to let the mashchis. Why is Hashem saying I'm not going to let the mashchis? There is no mashchis. Avada, there's no mashchis. But it's just a sign of humility. When you're the same way when you created man, you made it as if you want to get the advice of others. So too, when you recreate man through Makas B'chayros, you made this gesture. Don't worry, I won't let the mashchis destroy you. Marv Rabbi, if we're perceptive to the function of the makos and which makkah corresponds to what, there are probably dozens and hundreds and thousands, maybe millions of ramazim here of how each makkah is upholding the corresponding amira shenevra olam. Let's go back to the beginning. What then is Sefer Shemais? Sefer Shemais is nothing more than creation take two. Is recreating, authenticating, confirming the creation of the world. Therefore, the Bahag and therefore Shas are being merames to us in their great Chachma that if Bereshis is Genesis, is the creation of the world, then Shemais is nothing more than book 2. This is the second book of creation. This is a recreation of the world. The Rebbeinu Shalom is re-demonstrating, authenticating that you don't believe Zecher Lamasa Bereshis, it's Zecher L'Yitzias Mitzrayim. So we should taka b'zoicha to heighten and deepen our emunah in Brias HaOlam through the events of Yitzias Mitzrayim, and we should be zoicha Kimei Tzeischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim Arenu Neflayis. Shkaya. And I got you out a minute early. Okay.
You need a refund.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.